So as South Africa celebrates Heritage Day, we're also reminded of the many diverse cultures, religions, and languages that make up the so-called Rainbow Nation, as famously coined by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Since 1995, Heritage Day has been included as a public holiday, and that's to try and encourage a spirit of tolerance at the very least. The message every year from government is to celebrate the differences that actually once divided us. And to help us, I guess, connect the dots now, a couple of years later, let's bring in Brand Africa's founder and chairman, that's Thebe Ikalafeng, who's traveled to every country on the continent. He joins us now to reflect on how South Africa compares with the rest of the African continent, at least when it comes to the issues we're speaking about today. Thebe, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for making time on the AM report. I wonder whether you get the sense that we are really reflecting on what this day is about, especially in a context where museums across the country are lamenting dwindling numbers in terms of visitors who reflect on where we've come and hopefully where we're going.
I'm not sure whether we actually use that day for that particular purpose. I think it's just a public holiday in South Africa if we all just have to be frank with ourselves. Because it's pretty similar to April 27, where it was supposed to be the day when we regained our freedom. But I think in many ways it's just a public holiday. Because I think as a country and as a people, we have not really distilled what it means this day. What do we do on this particular day other than just speeches and dressing up in colorful clothes and call them our heritage? Because our heritage should be endemic, should be integral rather to everything that we do as a people, and how we behave and how we treat each other and how we and really our ways of life. But to us, it's just an event, unfortunately.
And is that the sense you get on all the other countries on the continent? I mean, you know, there's often a term, South African exceptionalism, that's used in the space of the academics, where they speak about how South Africa typically acts differently or thinks of itself as being different from the rest of the continent. But in your travels, are you getting a sense that there's a more ownership or greater ownership of cultures and heritage on other parts of the continent?
Well, not necessarily all countries, but if you go to West Africa, for example, and in particular a country like Ghana, to which I've been to probably about 100 times or so. But I've been, as you've noted, I've been to many of them for different reasons. A country like Ghana and a country like East Africa, you come to a country like Ethiopia. To them, their culture is their way of life. It is really who they are. And it is not a day which they have to wait for and then can't wait to dress up. They dress up that way. It's part of their meals. You go to Ethiopia, their culture, which revolves around their faith. It's really a part of who they are every single day, 24/7. Whereas with us, really, I think the big challenge for South Africa, actually, if I have to come back to South Africa, is that we actually never quite defined what does it mean to be a South African. We have put it down in paper. We've called it unity in diversity, a rainbow nation, as Tutu said, finally at peace with itself. But we've never quite defined what really does it mean to be South Africa, or South African, so that it then becomes the compass or the guiding principles around which we live. We always talk about, Mandela's values, Mandela's principles, but nobody's even defined what those mean. As a result, it's very, very difficult for South Africans to even explain to you other than our political history. And other than the fact that we are multiple tribes, so 10, 11, we've never quite defined what does it mean to be South African. So until you define what it means to be who you are, and it becomes a way of life, it will be very, very difficult for Heritage Day or Heritage Month or Heritage every day to mean anything to anybody, South African or even people who come here when they look at us. Because always people come here and they say, show me South Africa. What do you guys do? How do you do things? But when you go to Ethiopia, you feel you are in Ethiopia. When you go to Ghana, you feel you're in Ghana, or Nigeria to a lesser extent.
Sure. But it is, let's admit, it's quite a mammoth task to try to define what it means to be South African in a context where there's such vast and deep diversity in a country like ours. For instance, how would you begin trying to answer that question?
Very, very good question. Let me answer it in two parts. Other countries were very fortunate And Ethiopia was fortunate to have a Haile Selassie, to have the emperors Menelik before them. And what those leaders were able to do, they were able to define and to live and to lead a way that defines who they are as a country. You go to another country, I mentioned Ghana, they had Kwame Nkrumah. And if you look at all those leaders, what they had, which was quite incredible, was a clear vision for their country and also their country's relationship with the rest of the continent as well as with the world. Unfortunately for us, given we as the last country to be liberated, when Mandela came into South Africa, there was perhaps only one agenda, and that agenda was to liberate us. So we had political liberation, if you will, to liberate us politically, and there was not enough time or spent or committed towards defining what South Africanism means. So how would I define it if you ask me? Well, it all starts in the foundations. If you go to our schools, for example, we don't, like now I'm speaking to you in English, I probably should be speaking to you in isiXhosa. Because that's where it starts. Because part of the culture and acceptance and appreciation of who we are is also embracing the diversity and the color of our languages and our ways of being. So if you remember the incident at Boulders with the guy who arrived in Ndebele, right. that intolerance shows you how we have not accepted the differences. But if you go to our schools, our curricula does not include much of our cultural history at all, or MEFIC does not even embrace it. If you remember, there was instances of the young girl who came in with an afro and it became a big story, but that afro was, if you will, Afro-African, how I normally would have said one should be allowed to wear their hair in this country as an African country. So because we've been so over-westernized for so long, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to reimagine our education. We need to reimagine the types of holidays that we have and how we celebrate those holidays. We need to truly embrace how the languages that we have, the cultures that we have. Until then, you mentioned earlier about the institutions, whether it's a Fort Tracker monument or whether it's the Ladies' Leave we mentioned that was being talked about this morning, or whether it's Apartheid Museum. Until then, those will mean nothing, because those would just be excursions. They should not be excursions. They should really be a marker and a reminder of who we are. So, and I always look at the difference. I went to the Fort Tracker. I've been to pretty much most of the historical sites in South Africa. I went to the Fort Tracker and I was walking downstairs, and a young Afrikaans couple and their older father were walking, and there's a flag of the old South Africa in one of the glass cases in there. And as they passed it, the father stops and looks at them and says, "That is also fatherland. That's our country." And he stops to explain to the child what it means, that flag. See, our flag is just a reminder of the day that we changed. But I'm not sure even many people know what our flag means and what it stands for. And so to us, that is the challenge for us. If you look at Fort Tracker Monument, you look at the fort in Cape Town, and you look at many of the apartheid-era institutions, they are standing. They are standing, they are well curated, they are well supported, because to those people to whom they are meaningful enough for them to sustain. But unfortunately, we, the new South Africa, all-inclusive, are the ones supporting those. But the ones that we created post-94 do not even have the same stature or even the same structure as those. I mean, the Fort Tracker will not fall in the next 100 years. Neither will the fort in Cape Town, which has been there since 1652. But many of the institutions we've started since then have been very temporary, if you will. So temporary that it's easy for them to close.
Yeah. Thebe, I mean, you speak about, for instance, some of these sites being an excursion, something that we go to under, in some instances, exceptional circumstances. With that in mind, I mean, does it make sense for you that we live on a continent where people are only emboldened to wear their cultural attire on a specific day, when quite frankly, if we speak about owning your culture, that should be the status quo on any given Friday, Monday, or any other day of the month?
It should be like it is in particularly West Africa, where you have a sense of freedom and a clear sense of identity to be able to select from among the multiple the cultures that define you. So if you're in Nigeria, it is not, you will not be looked down if you wear your agbada to go to work or to an occasion, or if you decide to wear a Western suit, perhaps because you've got it and all those. That dexterity is allowed because it is a very diverse country and community and culture. So it doesn't make sense in South Africa that we even refer to our clothes going to events, if you will, they say we're formal or traditional. I don't know what formal or traditional is. They should really just say we're formal, and I should define what formal is. So when I decided to ditch a lot of the Western clothes that I used to wear for quote unquote formal events, whether it's a presentation, it's a meeting or an event, people said to me, "Oh, but you know, we don't like these rags. We miss that Thebe was GQ best dressed. What happened to that Thebe?" I said, he is better. He is more defined. He is now more clearer, and he is more connected with where he comes from and who he is. So you see, because even us, we don't accept it. You know, we don't like it when our children speak black language because we say, "Oh, but their English will not be so good if they start speaking in black language." Teachers have advised us. What have the teachers advised you? The teachers have led your child astray. I was so impressed yesterday. I was watching an interview with the founder of Isolezwe, and he says until the age of 12, he was one of those kids whose parents told him to only speak English because his teacher says it will mess up his if he speaks isiXhosa or isiZulu rather, it will mess up his English. He says, you know, I realized I had an epiphany, an awakening at the age of 12, and he started only speaking isiZulu. You look at somebody like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, I think it was 1977 or 72 or so, when he's a professor of literature and English in New York. He's taught at the Ivy Leagues, and he decided then to always write in his home language. And he says, because when you speak in your language, it brings everything together, the culture, the history, the heritage, because that is what we lack in this country. We don't lack museums and institutions to go to on Heritage Day. What we lack a sense of an understanding of who we are, what makes us who we are.
Sure. A lot of food for thought on this important day. Thanks very much indeed for your insights. Really do appreciate it. And hopefully it goes from your lips to the ears of many South Africans who at the very least care about preserving our heritage. Thebe Ikalafeng is the chair and the founder of Brand Africa. Once again, thanks very much indeed.